It's that time of year again. Christmas is right around the corner, and for the past 2 years, you already know it's Star Wars time. Not gonna lie, if it weren't for The Force Awakens, I wouldn't be doing reviews for these movies. Rey got me into it, Finn got me into it, and even hearing that beautiful intro song for the first time in theaters got me into it. Needless to say, I really liked The Force Awakens. Didn't love Rogue One as much as everyone else, but still thought it was pretty good. But now The Last Jedi is out, so is it any good? Probably or probably not. The answer is based on your own opinion, but before I give you my thoughts on it, just a heads up, spoilers. Star Wars The Last Jedi picks up right where The Force Awakens left off. On a literal cliffhanger. Rey has just tapped into her new abilities thanks to Luke Skywalker, but he low-key got triggered when he realized the strength of her power. While at the same time, the Resistance is prepping to 1v1 the First Order. The cast members were all pretty great as last time. Daisy Ridley and John Boyega are still killing it in their lead roles, but I was thoroughly surprised of how Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher really upped their skill in their craft. Like, you look at the olden ones from the series, and it's not that their acting was necessarily bad, but just comparing their portrayals shows that this is their strongest performance yet as their characters. I'm glad to say that I could say that she saved her best performance for last. Rest in peace, Carrie. Okay, so I want to get into this real quick. I had no idea how they were going to go with the Leia character. I mean, were they gonna write her off? Were they gonna kill her character off? Because the legend herself already passed. So when those TIE fighters blew up the bridge of the ship and she got sucked into the vacuum of space, I was just thinking they're like, y'all are some savages, not even 5 minutes of screen time and y'all already wrote her out. That's like creating a Club Penguin account without your parents' permission. That's crossing some lines right there. The whole theater fell silent as we just saw the ice crusting over her face. And it was heartbreaking for me to see her go like that. But then everything around her just suddenly freezes. And then she start like gravitating back towards the ship. Totally forgot she had the Force in her because we've never really seen her use it before. Not gonna lie, it reminded me of when Eminem was singing Rap God in his music video and he was like flying and stuff. You know what I mean? But in reverse. We also got to see more of that chemistry and background story between Kylo and Rey. Every time they had this internal Force distant connection, they had these intentional music high note cutoffs, and I thought that was really sweet to add to the tension. The filmmakers behind this franchise also lightweight played everyone. There was that one segment in one of the trailers where it gave the impression that Rey was leaning towards the dark side.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
But in actuality, it was the opposite. They had Kylo Ren constantly getting conflicted on which side he should take, the light or the dark. And I thought that was just clever marketing on their part. Some might say that's false advertising, but I would probably disagree on that. That scene where they were in front of Snoke together, I was 100% sure she was gonna Ultra Instinct her way out of things. But nah, she gets kicked around for quite a bit before luck starts leaning towards her way. While we're on the subject of that one scene, I gotta say I did not think they were gonna kill Snoke in the middle chapter. Kylo got him at such a good time too. Pizza Face over there was going on about how great he was. He literally became half the man he used to be. It basically said screw you to all the fans who were theorizing about who this character could be and how it'd be the next big bad guy who would be the main villain of episode 9. Gotta give props to the film for going against all those predictable tropes and taking a dive in some fresh waters. Other things I didn't get to talk about much already that I thoroughly enjoyed was the development of General Hux's character. To me, he was always that one kid on that one block that took things way too seriously. Like, he was so full of himself. He didn't know how to take jokes for anything. But that was all in The Force Awakens. Here, he's honestly one of the more memorable parts of the film. This movie begins with him being the butt of the joke thanks to Poe. Loved his character arc, by the way. It was just refreshing to see them pick up some people that weren't so much loved in the last film and gave them charisma in this one. And Chewie was good too. Nothing much I can really say about that. He had a great moment with the Porgs when he was about to eat one of them in front of them.
Wake me up! Wake me up!
However, while I did like a lot about this film, there's also quite a bit that it just didn't sit too well with me. For starters, the movie just felt way too long in my opinion. Specifically the middle section of the movie. The second act, essentially the meat of the story, it kinda sagged and dragged for me. And I think that's something to do with the whole story arc between Finn and the new character Rose. John Boyega and Kelly Marie Tran were phenomenal in their roles. No doubt about that. I mean, the build-up for the character of Rose was all fine and dandy, especially with that whole heartbreaking relationship she had with her sister. And I really enjoyed their journey. That's up until they made it onto that planet with that casino and abnormally tall llamas. That entire scene, or whenever they'd cut back to them, it just felt like the movie would get derailed in some sense from the main plot. Don't get me wrong, looking at the finished product, plot-wise, I guess you can say that adventure of theirs was necessary, but it just didn't seem too engaging when compared to Rey's Rey's whole thing with Kylo and Luke. That whole part felt like the longest unskippable YouTube ad for another Star Wars movie because of how it felt so distant from the main story. I may be speaking in hyperbole, but those are just my thoughts. That also leads me to the next sort of negative I have with this film. Benicio del Toro's DJ character was sort of meh. Like, the entire movie is trying something new and being so different from the other Star Wars movies in the franchise, and then you got this stereotypical guy who turns against the good guys last minute. On top of that, the kiss Rose shared with Finn felt sort of awkward for me. The way the movie was set up, it just made me see them more as like a BFF tag team, so that kinda took me out of it. That doesn't mean it compromises the film for me, as everything else seemed to be great, but the midsection of the film is so important, and it's sad to say that I felt that it dragged for me. But hey, Finn almost died, I would have cried, but he didn't, so I didn't. Back to the positives. There is so much to like about The Last Jedi. The visual effects are just utterly breathtaking, especially the ones used on Snoke. It all just looked so realistic. The space battles and lightsaber duels were all stunningly gorgeous. None of them fights were as unrealistic as the prequels where it's super obvious that it's choreographed. And yeah, Luke finally succumbs to the Force and dies at the end of this movie. I said earlier that there were a lot of Star Wars fans in my theater, and I want to reiterate that by saying I mean a lot. I'm a Star Wars fan myself, but nowhere near as big as many around me were. So when the reveal came that he was just projecting himself through the Force in front of Kylo, the whole 2 rows ahead of me were all like, oh nice, now this is what I sup for. As far as Easter eggs go, I'm like the worst person to go to for them, especially since I'm not that deep into the Star Wars lore. But hey, I caught 2, so that's pretty cool. They explicitly tell us that Rey's parents were absolute nobodies. They were junk traders who sold her off for drinking money and now lay dead in a pauper's grave on Jakku, laying to rest every fan theory out there saying that she's either Luke's daughter or Leia's daughter. I know the new Battlefront 2 game alluded to a very different answer, but that was non-canon, so I didn't expect it to be in the movies. This film simultaneously debunked all of the conventional Snoke theories and the parents of Rey theories all at once. That's so meta. And lastly, Yoda makes his cameo in this thing right when Luke is reluctant to burn down the old books he never even read. It wasn't the controversial CGI one from the prequels, but the nostalgic puppet one from the original movies. When the camera first panned around behind his head, I thought it was just some other hybrid of those ice fox things we saw in the trailers. I heard everyone around me getting all giddied up, and I was over there looking like a lost grandma, wondering why everyone was getting so hyped over this CGI animal. But then it showed Yoda's ultra-blazed face, like he just took a large hit, and I got it. So is Star Wars The Last Jedi a good movie? Yes. It's got some new interesting twists and turns in this franchise that is just beyond expectation. And they pick up the slack on characters that were kinda an afterthought in The Force Awakens and made them much more memorable this time around. Except for Captain Phasma. She still really didn't do much in this movie. I loved the score, which I didn't get to talk about too much. The action scenes were phenomenal, and the visuals were just amazing. Though it does have a really saggy midsection, the beginning and end of the film were able to make up for it in my book. I'd say it's worth the watch.
Hey, this ain't so bad though.
As far as how I'd rank this among the other Star Wars films, I'm not quite sure. I haven't watched the old ones or the prequels in such a long time. But as for the more recent ones, I'd say it's better than Rogue One, but not as good as The Force Awakens. I know I'm in the vast minority when I say that, which is fine, we all have our own opinions. It's just that in Rogue One, though it was something new to the Star Wars franchise, the character development was so lackluster there, I didn't really feel any emotional attachment to them when they died. I put The Force Awakens above this one because it was just thoroughly engaging all around, in the beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, I know there are a lot of complaints that it draws too much inspiration from A New Hope and all that, but I never really watched A New Hope before I saw The Force Awakens. So maybe that's why I liked it so much. Because unlike everyone else, I couldn't tell that it took so much from the original, and that I just enjoyed it for what it was. So yeah, I put this one in the middle because it felt like it dragged at some parts. But anyways, y'all, my thoughts don't really matter that much. It's yours that does. Comment below what you thought of Star Wars The Last Jedi, and how you'd rank it among the other Star Wars movies. And if you genuinely like this video, then by all means, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And for more of my videos, just click right here.